We are on live, or we are on live on Facebook already.
Good evening, everyone. So welcome all of you to the 8th talking series of Jai Jagat. Jai Jagat is a march for a better tomorrow, for a non-violent government, a better society, a non-violent education. And who else can lead this march? Who else can be the future of this idea? It's the youth. And that's why it's really important to discuss the role of youth in nonviolent change or a nonviolent political change. And that's the topic for our today's discussion. I am Satish Rajacharya from India, and I was also a marcher for Jai Jagat 2020. I have David with us, who will be with me moderating this whole session. We have with us few panelists. We have Dr. Mazhar Hussain sir with us, who is the founder of COVA, which is a network of 700 organizations working for communal harmony and community empowerment. He was also a board member of various governmental and non-governmental organizations such as Steering Committee of Planning Commission, State Bank of India, and many more. He has also coordinated many campaigns for peace, starting from Festival of Subcontinent in 1997 to Peace Wall in 2018. He is also a director for 2 documentaries and a co-author for an award-winning play called Praja Nahi Nagrik Hai Hum, which was based on citizens' entitlement and decentralized governance. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, Satish ji.
Hello, my name is David. It's a great honor for me to moderate this meeting. So our guest, except Mazhar Hussain, is my colleague, my friend David Petrosyan from Armenia. He is co-founder of Restart Student Civic Initiative. He is one of the founders of Observing Mission in Armenia, big mission with Transparency International, and he had participation in many civic disagreements in Armenia starting from 2016. And our next guest is my dearest Lorena Julio from Argentina. She is human rights activist. In spite of her young age, she is working with a network of people with disabilities in 7 Latin American countries. So she lives now in Patagonia, Argentina. So I want you, our friends, to talk a little bit more detailedly about your activities. So I would like to start from Mazhar Hussain. Please, Mr. Hussain, talk a little bit about your activities. And after that, David and Lorena will speak about the activities.
Thank you very much, David. I'm happy to be here, and a warm welcome to all the people who may be listening to us and with whom we may be able to interact in a little while. As already mentioned by Mr. Satish, my organization's name is COVA, Confederation of Voluntary Associations. It's a national network working on issues of communal harmony in India and peace at the South Asia level. We work with the surrounding 7 countries. Now, we work with different sections of society, the poor, the marginalized, the Dalits, the minorities, and also we work with women, children, and youth. Youth and students form a very important part of our constituency. So without speaking much about the other activities that COVA is engaged in, which is a huge range, we take pride in claiming and saying that we work right from the grassroots to the UN. I mean, at the implementation to the policy transformation levels. But now I would like to focus more on youth. And my experience has not been much globally, but mostly in India and also to some extent in South Asia with the youth. And I would like to focus on first about the issues about the youth in India. And especially with our experience in Hyderabad, we work with 100 schools, 20 colleges, and 5 universities. where the youth are involved. Apart from that, we are actively involved in about 40 different localities where the youth of those localities are our partners in promoting peace and in also ensuring development of this area. Now, one very disturbing thing about the youth in India, which has been emerging for some time now, is most of our education is unfortunately focused on making our youth and our students as professionals. We teach them all the academic subjects like math, physics, chemistry, and all these things, but they're hardly ever introduced to any social issues. They don't
Mr.
know.
Mr.
Yeah?
Hussein, we would like more. We will talk about more about issues what face youth in India, in Armenia, and all other countries. We would like more to give a speech now to David and Lorena. Thank you a lot for introduction about your organization. You do great work in your organization, so big appreciations. So I would like to give a speech to David, and we'll come back to really good issues that you mentioned. Thanks a lot. So David, please talk a little bit about your activities.
Okay, thank you for this great opportunity. It's really important to speak about youth, especially as today is 20th of April. 2 years ago this day, the revolution was this was one of the main active days of the revolution, and youth was very important during that time. And for example, yesterday it was the day when me and David were caught by the police. So 2 years ago this time we were doing very important stuff. So today I will try to speak about what role youth had during Armenian Revolution, what opportunities we have after the revolution, and what challenges we face. I'm representing Restart Student Initiative, which is a youth organization more oriented in educational sphere. We are very concerned with reforms in higher education sphere and also about youth policy in Armenia. Currently, we are conducting projects in these two fields and are trying to protect the right of students to voice their problems and try to reach the agenda which was put during the revolution, because some of the very important part of that agenda have not been fulfilled by the government, by the universities, and we are very concerned about these topics, and we try not only to speak about these topics, not to make platforms to engage students, but also we try to come up with suggestions, come up with proposals. That is why mostly we organize two kind of events. The one part is engagement of youth, capacity building, and the second one is research blog, where we try to come up with proposal packages, suggestions, policies, in order to help the government, help the universities to make the reforms which are necessary for the improvement of youth affairs and education quality in Armenia.
Thanks a lot, David, for sharing with us your experience. So I would like to give speech to Lorena, like she is co-founder of Foundation Comparlante in Argentina, and we would like to hear more detail about that foundation and your activities there, Lorena.
Hi, David. Hello, my Jayajar friends. I'm really happy to share this talk with you today about the role of youth in this process of peace building process. No, before talking about my experience or the activity of Fundación Comparlante, the organization that I'm leading now, I want to talk about a little bit about my background working with youth. I worked for 5 years in the government of the province of Buenos Aires here in Argentina, in press and communication, but focused on vulnerable groups. That was where I started working on promotion and protection of human rights. After that, I moved to Washington, D.C. to work at the Organization of American States in the Young America's Business Church, which is the sector of the OAS focused on youth. So at that time, I was in charge of the youth network of the Americas. No? In one hand, the youth leaders of the Latin America, and on the other hand, the young entrepreneurs. So that was really good opportunity to work hand by hand with different networks of activists, leaders in all Latin America. But since 2015, I'm leading an organization which is called Fundación Comparlante. It's a nonprofit organization that promotes the right and the development of persons with disabilities in Latin America. We are 10 young leaders from 7 different countries. So we develop our projects in 3 main pillars. One is accessibility, the second is art, and the third is entrepreneurship. So basically what we are promoting now, what I'm focused here in Latin America, is in the right of persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorena. So first question to our panelists is about, you shared about your activity with youth. So we want to understand how you appreciate the involvement of youth in political changes in whole your country, for understanding effectiveness of your work, the level of activism. So I would like to start, David, this conversation. As you mentioned, as we know, revolution took part in Armenia 2 years ago. So I think you have a lot of things to share with us. So David.
Yeah, thank you for a very important question. And as our topic today is like the case of Armenian Revolution, and it's like very fresh experience, and we would like to share with this with our friends, and also to emphasize some important post-revolutionary events. So during the revolution, the role of youth was really very important. Even some people say that maybe without youth it would be very difficult to make the revolution. The youth were the first group, the first segment who came the streets, who were caught by the police, and who tried to to break the wall of change, which was very important. And after youth, a lot of people were empowered. And according to history, when we look through the other experiences of other countries, we noticed that youth role is very important during political changes, and youths are sometimes they come up as stimuli for essential changes. At the same time, it's very important to mention that during such events like revolution or other political events, when people ask something or people try to change something, it's very important to have the ability to transform that actions from reactive one to proactive one. And for this, we need institutions, because I will not say a new thing, but we know that after revolution, there can come an apathy, there can come a level of the low level of participation, in case if we don't have developed civil society. As in Armenia, we have civil society, but not very developed one and not very democratic civil society. We need these institutions. So what we can say for now is that the role of youth during the revolution was very big, was very important. Sometimes it's very even difficult to assess it adequately. However, after the revolution, the role of youth on decision-making process, the role of youth in participating in political events is not as high as we would like or as it could be. And this can be connected with different factors. And for me, the most important factor is the institutionalization. And from here, it goes what we understand when we say this, yeah? As most part of youth comes from universities, and universities are the places where students come together, where they speak, where they understand new things. where they like should study like criticism thinking or history, so everything. Universities also must serve as places for youth to assemble, to make unions, to try to protect their rights as it is in like democratic societies, liberal democratic societies. However, in our case, the groups which are called like student councils have not been reformed accordingly after the revolution. And this was mostly the responsibility of the Ministry of Sport, Science, Education, and Youth, and also the universities to make these changes, because they also promised to make these changes during the revolution, but they didn't do it. That is why now we have student unions, student organizations, which are not very effective because of some important factors. I would like not to go into much details, but I would like just to mention the principles which they lack, and which in its turn negatively influence their work. The first one is not inclusiveness. Not all students are engaged in the work of student councils. That is why a lot of interests, a lot of rights, a lot of problems are bypassed. The second one is the representativeness, which is also connected with the inclusiveness. The representative mechanism is not very effective. That is why majority of students are away from this decision-making process. And very important is the financial part of the student organizations. The student unions, which are at the universities, they are financed by the administration of the university. And for this finance, they don't suggest any project, or afterwards, they don't provide any reports. That is why this financial dependence from the administration of the universities negatively influences their work, and one can easily claim that this also affects their independence enormously. On the other hand, like we have student groups like Restart, which are not at universities. They have students representatives at universities, but they are out of the universities. And these groups try to have impact, but naturally, as universities are conservative, they try to avoid from Restart, not all universities, but some of them, and try also, by this way also to avoid from reforms. So we have a situation when we have like two kind of groups, and after the revolution we should have a structure where all these groups can work together and bring more effect and more outputs. So this is like my first remark on what we had during the revolution and what we have after the revolution.
Thanks a lot, David. So I would like to give speech Mr. Hussein. So I would like to hear how about youth in India, how you appreciate the involvement of youth in India. And David mentioned very important thing about institutionalization of youth activities, how you will appreciate that in India. So Mr. Hussein.
See, actually in India, historically, youth had a very important role to play in politics and social transformation. Right from our freedom movement, freedom from the British, which we attained in 1947, youth had been very actively involved, the whole society for that matter. Then there was another instance, I think somewhere around 1975 or 76 or 77, when there was a huge youth movement which had emerged in India and which overthrew the government of that time, helped in overthrowing the government, not overthrowing the government, but it put the government in such a bind that the government had to impose emergency. The youth power had come to the fore. Now this, from those highs of youth involvement in politics, unfortunately, when we come to the present, we find that most of the youth of the country are depoliticized. we do have student politics used to be there right from colleges to universities. But most of the colleges have banned student politics. So only place where you have are in the universities. And in the universities also, as David was mentioning, a lot of places it is quite conservative at the universities also. And unfortunately, youth politics is being criminalized of late, especially the last 5 years. Youth leaders are being criminalized, cases are being slapped against them because they are questioning the establishment. It's a very sad and sorry development. The other reason for this, I think, is that over the years, the whole society in India is oriented towards transforming or making our children into professionals, successful professionals, so that they can have careers. There is no such thing as, training them to become good leaders of society, conscientious leaders of society. So everybody is being given only orientation and training in academics like physics, chemistry, mathematics, and things like that. And as I was mentioning, there is no orientation to social issues. Our children, our students, they have hardly any experience about poverty, about farmers, about climate change, about child labor, about gender rights, you name it, any social issue, they would hardly have any awareness about that. And that is what is not only making them depoliticized, but also dehumanized. So they're not bothered about society, they're not bothered about others. All that they want is to build a successful career. Now, this is the challenge that we are facing, and my organization has started addressing this particular thing. We have started this program called Compassionate Citizenship and Responsible Activism Program, by which last 15 years we have been doing it in different schools and colleges and universities, where going beyond the academic curriculum that they follow, we try to orient them to various social issues. And it's not just theoretical, people going and giving lectures, but also actually going into the field and getting them to interact with different social issues and different social players. For example, child labor, farmers, or women, or people from different social backgrounds. So that really transforms their whole perspective. And we found that this is really slowly bringing about a change where they have not only become a little more humanized, but also trying to change the society, change the system in their own ways. The various things which they have done, the youth. So I think what we need to do is reorient our entire education system, because I think this whatever is happening in the world today, especially in India, is because of the skewed education system that we have, which is oriented mostly towards making youth into professionals. The second and last point which I would like to mention here, because Mr. Satish had also mentioned about the role of youth in communalization, communal harmony. I would like to say that unfortunately, any violence that takes place to a very large extent, there the participation of youth is very high. It's hardly people about 30, 25 or 30 who take part in the physical that takes place in the streets. Our experiences, children as young as 12 or 13 are, motivated to get involved. And most of the youth which take part are between 18 to 20, 22. So, I mean, this is a very dangerous, trend which is there now for quite a lot of years. And I think until and unless we do something, and the political parties, unfortunately, with vested interest, they are using youth, misusing youth. And another very critical and dangerous phenomena which has emerged now is the social media. So social media is also playing a very big negative role, shaping the mindset of the people. So I think what we need to do, the challenge before all of us, I think, is to reorient the very education of our youth and our children, our students, to make them more sensitive human beings, which is missing, and also to make them responsible citizens. Because what we try to tell our youth is that you don't have to be Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa to change the world. All of us in our own ways can bring about small transformations. And believe me, our youth have done such excellent work in bringing about micro level transformation. And they do that then, they get that whole inspiration to keep continue to do that. Maybe small changes everywhere, and that can really bring about a major change. I think this is something which we need to look at. And with youth, I think we need to focus more on how we can use social media constructively to really get them more involved as citizens and increase their political consciousness and political involvement. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hussein. So I would like to give speech to Lorena. So Mr. Hussein mentioned about women. I would like to hear about young women involvement in your country, in Argentina, in Latin America, and not only women. I would like to hear about perspective of youngsters with disabilities. Please, Lorena.
Well, I was thinking in an answer, and now you are changing the, the rules, but let me start with the previous answer, because I have some points in common with the previous panelist. Of course, we have a long story regarding to the youth participation, mostly youth from universities. There's something in common between Argentina and Armenia, which is that we went through a genocide. The last dictatorship that happened in Argentina in 1976 with similar characteristics. It was a systematic plan to kill a sector of the society, and unfortunately, this sector of the society were the university students, the organized university students that were fighting for a better world for all. There's one specific event that happened in my country in September in 1976 in La Plata. It was called La Noche De Los Lpices, which means the night of the pencils, where a group of teenagers, like above 18 years old, were kidnapped by the militaries, and they suffered torture, and most of them were killed. And the only thing that they were asking for was for student transportation tickets. So at that time, there were like 10 young people, like 8 of them were killed, 2 only survivors. And luckily now we know the story through them, But they were asking just for bus passes, bus tickets. So, and that was like 40 years ago. But here in Latin America, 4 years ago, most of you perhaps know about Ayotzinapa, the 43 students that were also kidnapped by the government and are still disappeared. There's no information about them, about what happened with them. So there was like a group of 40 young students that were like traveling from the south of Mexico to the capital city to participate in a mobilization, and they were kidnapped. So, and it was 4 years ago. That's still something that is happening in Latin America, the abuse of the police and the government on this like youth active participation in political issues. So that is in one hand, that there's a really active participation from youth. They're always like moving claims regarding to laws. Here in Argentina, now we are focused on new law regarding to abortion, because you ask about like women. So there's a law. It's not only abortion. We are asking for sexual education at school, but the problem is like every day there are women dying due to unsafe abortions. So what we are asking is we need a law that provide safe and legal, safe and free abortion. This manifestation, this movement starts here in Argentina and move forward for all Latin America. There's a huge movement regarding to like sexual and reproductive rights. No? So this is one of the main discussions happening now in Argentina and in Latin America. But at the same time, I just like make some points on negative or sad situations that youth face while they want to have like public or participation in politics. But at the same time, there are different like channels or spaces in the international arena for the participation of young people. Myself, I participate in the Forum of Youth, which is in the framework of the Summit of Presidents. Every 4 years here in America, we have the America Summit, which is a President Summit. And there's also a parallel event, which is the Forum for the Youth, where we have a space to talk, to discuss the same topic that presidents are talking about. So if the topic is corruption, so we talk about corruption and we design a declaration, and this declaration is presented in front of the president. So there's some channels to be part of the discussions, no, and also to introduce different discussions. In my case, I always came with the accessibility issues that persons with disability face every day, the barriers that they face every day, no, to try to put it in the governmental agenda to make some change, no, what we need. So in 2014, I was selected as the representative of the youth of America, and I had the chance to talk in front of the presidents. I spoke after President Obama. So it was a really great opportunity to bring our own agenda, you know? So what I mean with this is it's possible. If I did it, we can all do. We can all participate. For example, in the United Nations, every February, there's a forum, which is called ECOSOC, which is Economic and Social Forum. And all people, like civil society, all the civil society can be involved in this process. It's not Lorena Julio. If you apply, you can be part of that. You can have like a space in the ECOSOC. We participate also in that United Nations spaces, again, like talking about the right of people with disabilities. But I really encourage all those like young people who are following this talk on Facebook, and please try to get involved in like more, try to find information. There's a lot of spaces open for us. So we need to take the challenge, you know, to become a change maker. It's not easy, but we can do it. And there's like different levels and different spaces that we can take the opportunity to, to talk about our really, really important needs, and to make our voice higher. No?
Okay. So I at this point I want to put up a question to all the panelists that how do you mobilize youth for a change? Like what I got to know is there were a lot of young people on the streets during Velvet Revolution, and even Mazhar sir has mentioned the role of youth in such thing historically. So how do you mobilize this youth? How do you mobilize youth for a non-violent change? So David, if you want to go first, or anyone. I think David, you should go first.
So when we speak about revolution, it's very important to mention that the students were part of another big event. So the mobilization was mostly done with Facebook pages. The problem and goal, they knew why we were in the streets. So there was no need to speak with them second time or to clarify what we are doing. So Facebook was the main tool to mobilize the students. But when we speak about other events, when we try to mobilize students for protection of their rights or solving for other problems, it's very important to speak with the students, to say them what is the problem, try to communicate them wisely. And Facebook is just one way to communicate. It's very important also to communicate them, like physical communication is also like very important. Then it comes online communication, where it's very important to specify for what we are going to struggle, to make this information clear, try to avoid from big texts, or in parallel with big text to have information which will be easily perceived. It's good way to have videos, to have numbers, and also to have flyers. In our experience, we always shared flyers at the universities, trying to attract the attention of the students. So when we're speaking about mobilization, it's very important to be in the game, like to try to engage students and to make them clear for what you are going to start. Because to our mind, maybe the problem is very important. It's very important to solve it, but maybe students or people don't understand is that we understand. So it's important to communicate with them, so to engage them. So from the point of mobilization, maybe this is my answer. So I think that's it.
Sir, you want to add?
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Should I?
Mazhar sir, can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe after Lorena. Lorena, you can.
Sure.
It's a short one. In this case, now what we are working is, in one hand, promoting people to join our fight for the right of people with disabilities. But on the other hand, we are also promoting to bring more young entrepreneurs to focus on social impact. No? Let me give you one example. Teresa González Garcia, she's from Mexico. She is a leader and also an entrepreneur. She was selected as a UN Young Leader, with 300,000 application, and she was selected from one of the 17 UN Young Leader, these like ambassadors from the SDGs. Why? Because she has a project which is called Liter of Light. I don't know if you know it because it's worldwide known, but she is the leader in Mexico. What they do is like taking a recycled bottle, PET bottle with a LED light and a small solar panel. They are bringing light to communities. And what is this so important? What's the relation with nonviolence, with peace? If you have light, there's no violence. Think about a square, a dark corner in your city. If you bring light, there's not gonna be drug selling. There's gonna be like a better place for all the people to enjoy and move around. So the change that she made through this entrepreneurial idea have a really positive impact in communities with a plastic bottle. So what we are doing is encourage more Teresas, to use entrepreneurship to have positive social impact in communities.
Okay.
I comment?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I think it is very important what Lorena has spoken about. I would like to say that it is actually, in a more larger sense, hope. You see, you cannot talk of non-violence until and unless you're hopeful. Only those people I think, who can think of non-violence, who can invest in non-violence, who are hopeful of a change. Those who have lost hope will resort to violence out of frustration. So I think first and foremost requirement for any society to be able to, enlist either youth or any section of society would be to inculcate in them and show them hope, possibility of a positive transformation, whether, what was mentioned as light by Lorraine, or positive transformation. Now, what I find that in India, and now I think more and more globally, especially with this COVID thing which has happened, this whole lockdowns across the globe and people losing jobs, and the whole despondency that has come in, I think this is going to lead to a lot of hopelessness, and this hopelessness could lead to a lot of violence. I can sense it in society in India itself. I think the time is not long when there could be food riots because people are hungry. And there could be riots not only in cities, but also in villages across the country. So I think it is a very, very big challenge. The situation which has emerged now because of COVID and the lockdowns, I think it has really transformed our society, rather put it on its head. The whole thing is upside down now. And here, the challenge, because before all of us who want to promote peace, is how we can reclaim hope for humanity, hope for our countries, hope for our people. I think until and unless we get hope back in our lives, there'll be huge violence in society. And youth are no exception. In fact, youth would be the very first victims of hopelessness. And I think they would be the very first actors towards towards violence. I think big challenge, especially for Rajgopal ji and for all of us, how we can reclaim back hope into our societies, into our life, and get youth away from violence into constructive responses to what is emerging in the world today because of lockdowns and because of the COVID phenomenon.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hussein, David, and Lorena. Our next question is more basic, more big one. So about, you've mentioned all in your speech about success stories, and I want to hear more like what success stories you had of youth involvement in political changes, and what was the motivation for people to go out, or what was the behind that issues, and what problems they face that time that they try to raise their voice, try to speak about some real issues and try to struggle for that. So I would like to start, for example, David from Revolution, because it's very fresh one. So David.
Revolution is a really very successful story, but I would like more to speak about another topic which was also very successful, and as it is really very poor student movement, maybe it's worth speaking about it. This was the initiative connected with the decision made by the previous government in 2017, when the government planned to limit the right of students to study, and it was connected also with military service. We initiated a movement, student movement, in 2017. So during the rule of the party, the government, which was overthrown as the result of the revolution, which was really successful because a lot of students went for class strikes. There were even hunger strikes, and in 2017, as the political atmosphere in Armenia was really very apathetic, and people didn't have the will, also the hope that something would be changed. It was very important student movement because it gave people hope, and also self-confidence to students that they can speak about their problems, they can fight for their problems. And also, according to some people, this movement, which was prior to the revolution, played an important role for the student mobilization during the revolution. At the same time, this struggle made government change the regulations, and until now, students have the opportunity to apply for that regulation in order to continue their study. And starting from 2018, if I'm not mistaken, we have had more than 500 students who used this opportunity. So for me, this struggle was and is maybe one of the most successful stories, not even maybe the most successful one.
Thanks a lot, David. So I would like to listen the opinion of Mr. Hussein connected to this question. So, Mr. Hussein.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You see, insofar as the involvement of youth is concerned in politics, see, as I was mentioning to you, at the college level, school level, we don't have much of politics, proper politics in terms of unions and all that, only at the university level. Now, our involvement more is with college and school students. And what we have realized is politics is also bringing about transformation in society. Basically, for me, politics is changing society for the better. And here, we have realized that there are three dimensions at which people can bring about changes in society, positive changes. One is their individual level through their own individual initiatives. Second is by involving the community. And third is by engaging with the system and the government. And we have tried to engage students by giving them appropriate platforms to engage in all these three. There are many instances of successes for the students at all the three levels. Very briefly, I'd like to flag only one from each one of these so that people can understand. See, we had done this project work for school students where they engage with social issues for 3 months, 2 to 3 months. And in one of the years, there are so many others where students were engaged with the issue of child labor. And some 3 students, they went and met one child labor, inquired with this person, this child labor, whether the person would like to engage in child labor or continue to studies. The person said, I would like to, the boy said, I would like to. And they approached their school principal and motivated the school principal to admit this boy into the class, and they collected money from the relatives and friends to buy uniform and books for this person. So this is how an individual initiative can bring about transformation in society. Secondly, in the same way, you see, we have had so many instances where the youth, they went to the officials, to the government, and made a huge number of representation on various issues. And there was this case where, we have this parking fees for vehicles, cars and two-wheelers. Now, in some of the places, there were exorbitant fees which was being charged by those more than what was officially prescribed. Students went, made a complaint and ensured that only the prescribed fees is charged. I'm just giving one example. And then they also went and made some representations to improve the life of the farmers. They went right up to the ministers. So basically what we try to do is try and slowly engage them into involvement with the system. Because unfortunately in India, one problematic which we have is most people think that there is no point in approaching the system, no point in approaching the government, nothing will happen. We have to break this mindset. You cannot engage in politics until and unless you are confident that you can bring about transformation in the system. So I think the first battle which we have, the first task which we have is to change the mindset of the system, positivity, that you can engage with the system to transform it. Then providing them platforms and training to actually engage with the system. And once they engage with the system and transform the system, that really changes their mindset. And we hope that in future, they would also get into politics in a proper manner. That's how we have been working.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hussein. So I would like to give speech to Lorena about Argentina, about the Argentine experience about this topic. So.
Yeah, one successful experience regarding youth participation, I feel, was the Me Too campaign. The Me Too in Argentina is Ni Una Menos. Because in Argentina, we have one woman dead every 36 hours. So the woman victim of violence rate here is really, really high. So after this movement, the Me Too movement, there were some changes on legislation in our national legislation. So I can say that's a good one regarding to the unity and the sorority and solidarity among the youth here in my country. And in this case, I disagree with the panelists because I feel that the role of social media in the success of this campaign was really, really central. No, it was really important, the role of social media, Facebook, Twitter, also even Instagram. No, there, yeah, I find that the social media as platform can have also positive use, and this is a good example of how can we mobilize together and the sense of unity. How can we like push so much to finally achieve a new law working all together? Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Lorena.
Just one quick intervention.
Yeah,
Just
of course.
social media is a double-edged sword. It can dimensions, but it can also have huge negative dimensions. If you want to experience the negativity of social media, welcome to India. We'll be your host. And once you're here, you'll understand how dangerous social media has become and how it is poisoning society. Unfortunately, it's also a reality. So for us, the challenge is how to transform social media into a positive thing. And COVA has already started one huge campaign on this we call Kofi networks. This is another totally different issue, but I'd like to say that this is basically to reclaim cyberspace for positivity. It will not happen on. We have to really go out, fight every inch to reclaim cyberspace for positivity. The full form of COFI, which COVA has started, is Cyber Operations for Fraternity and Integration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Hussein. So our next question is how and what opportunities brought that political changes? For example, in case of Armenia, what opportunities brought revolution for youth, and how police makers make laws for youth, how they do for engaging more youth in big spheres. So, and how youth use that opportunities. And in case of Argentina and India also, I would like to hear that political changes that youth had opportunity to have great role in it after that post change time, what they did. So David, I would like to start from you.
So when we speak about opportunities, it is connected with the principles of democracy, that people can speak and they would not be prosecuted. People can speak, can act, and they will not be taken to police. These are very important achievements which give people to be active. In fact, I'm not sure that all these rights are now protected in Armenia, and here is and I want to speak about also the social media, as Mr. Hussein and Lorena mentioned about it. Yes, social media is a very important tool to mobilize people, to communicate, to share information. At the same time, as in parallel with advantages, it has also drawbacks. For example, in Armenia, social media now is used as a tool for spreading hate speech, for spreading swears, and for spreading manipulations and disinformation. But until we don't have tools to fight with these dangers, with this phenomena, they stay dangerous. But as to me, the critical thinking, media literacy is the tool to avoid from these dangers and to use these sources effectively and usefully. And here comes the part of education, which is directly connected to the involvement of youth, the activation of youth, because this education, which not need to be always formal one, also non-formal education, brings that idea and the energy to make a change, to change something. And unfortunately, until now, at the university, students are not provided with that quality of education. So for me, when we speak about opportunities, until now, I think we have the opportunity to provide students with new opportunities. But like to say that we have reached very big opportunities after the revolution, I don't think that it's it will be honest from my part.
Okay. So Lauren, I would like to hear you about, you said about campaign. After that campaign, what happened? What opportunity?
Well, I feel that that campaign shows the importance of unity, and the power of unity, and how impactful can be if we unite together and claim for something. So we, with Fundación Comparlante now, we are promoting the same for people with disabilities, to claim for the right of people with disabilities. Nowadays, due to coronavirus, we are facing, all the population, we are feeling what people with disabilities feels every day, because they cannot go out of their houses because the environments are not accessible, transportations, roads, public buildings like schools, banks, coffee shops, places for leisure. They can't go out because there's no accessible environment. Think about a wheelchair user. So what I feel, if after this coronavirus pandemic, when everything came back to normalities, to a normal, we will start organizing people with disabilities to go out of the streets and to claim for their rights, for more accessible environments.
Thanks a lot, Lorena. And Mr. Hussein, you have great experience, so I would like to hear your experience also about opportunities.
Can you repeat, please? Experience about?
Yeah, a question was about opportunities after political changes that youth had great role in. So you have great experience in India, and I would like to hear after some political changes that youth had involved in that, what opportunities they had and how they used it.
See, we have got quite a lot of experiences from the past. Example, the freedom movement, the way youth were mobilized to participate in the movement, to become a very big force, potent force, which really contributed to making the freedom movement a success. And as I was mentioning to you, the JP movement also was there. Jayaprakash Narayan, one of our leaders. And there was huge corruption around that time in the country. Now also there is quite a bit. But the youth were mobilized in a big way, to the extent that the system at that time, the government at that time, were challenged all across the country. It was the youth from the universities, from colleges who had come on, and with the objective of trying to change, address this particular issue. And that also had a very good impact. Similarly, a few years back, we had another movement, again, anti-corruption movement, wherein again the youth got involved. And a huge transformation came about, but I think nothing much happened. But the youth mobilization was quite tremendous. It's not very long back. It was just about 2012-13. So it's as recent as that. And then there was another very big movement which we had recently. There was this horrendous rape in Delhi of a young girl who unfortunately also died. Nirbhaya was the name given to the girl. And the whole country, all the youth came out in large numbers, protested against this, and it brought about massive changes in terms of the laws that were there, in terms of the protection for women. A lot of these things happened. So I think it's not that youth do not get mobilized, youth cannot be mobilized, but unfortunately what has happened, what we see now, unlike during freedom movement and all that, youth are getting mobilized around issues, specific issues. What we require, the challenge is to mobilize youth for processes, because I think a long-term political transformation is a process. It's not an event, it's not an issue. So, the youth can be mobilized, youth have been mobilized even as recently as about 5-6 years back in India in a big way, pan-India movement. But I think we still have to grapple with and come with a strategy by which youth can be involved for the process of political transformation of society and not for specific issues. Thank you.
Okay. So I think keeping time in mind, we should move to the conclusion of this session. Before we move to the conclusion, I would like to read a message that came for us. It's from Catherine. Thank you all, particularly to Lorena. I appreciate that you present an intersectional feminist view on this issue. So that's a message for Lorena.
Thank you.
And yeah, I could draw out few conclusions of all the discussions that we had. One major conclusion that is there is we are creating youth more as professionals and not introducing them towards social issues or trying to make more social leaders. So we should introduce more social issues and try to develop more social leaders. And also one of the major things that is associated towards today's youth is social media, which is like a two-edged sword, which also has its problem, but if used correctly, we can have revolutions like Velvet Revolution or many other campaigns. And it's also important that we create more platforms where we can have discussions and which will bring us more closer to a non-violent society. And to conclude, I would say that one line which was really close to me is only those who are hopeful can think of non-violence and non-violent society. So let's use this time to be more hopeful and spread hope across the world, the globe, and to be hello.
Yeah, your voice went out, Satish.
Yeah. So I was just
You
concluding
are
by
hopeful
saying
that you will come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopeful that you will come back.
Jai Jagat.
Yeah. So let's be hopeful and let's spread the message of peace across the globe. Jai Jagat. Before we leave, I would also like to tell everyone that on April 24th, which is the day of Armenian genocide, we also have a very great session, same like this. So we hope all of them who have joined us today will be there on April 24th, that is this Friday. Thank you, everyone. Jai Jagat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai
Jai
Jagat.
Jagat.
So, see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.